the staff of Parliament, all our distinguished guests in your various capacities, ladies and gentlemen. You're most welcome to Parliament. Welcome to this inaugural event where we launch the opposition legislative agenda. We are really happy to have you here. And Mr. Speaker, I thank you that you stepped in when technology had failed us. I know the speaker has always been a very musical person, but I will leave that for him to explain that in his own time. We are especially glad to have all of you members here. It is not very often that we have this kind of gathering without extreme security, without tear gas, without all these kinds of things. But this is a first of its kind, and especially here at Parliament, when we prepare to launch the legislative agenda for the opposition. Now, I'm not the one to make the opening remarks, so allow me to use this opportunity to invite the Chief Opposition Whip, Honorable John Baptist Nambeshe, to kindly come and officially welcome us here and tell us about the purpose of this function. Thank you very much.
The Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament of the Republic of Uganda, the Leader of the Opposition in the Parliament, the Commissioners and colleagues, Members of Parliament, Heads of political parties, Clerk to the Parliament, Lord Mayor, civil society partners, and partners in the media, all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Nambeshe John Baptist, the Chief Opposition Whip of the 11th Parliament. And Right Honorable Speaker, before I commence on the brief remarks that I ought to make, I seek your indulgence to permit me recognize the presence of the staff of the Leader of Opposition's office. And the staff present, could you please raise up in recognition? I would maybe request the Director to quickly, you have a split second, introduce your troops.
Right Honorable Speaker, the Leader of Opposition, the Shadow Cabinet, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Right Honorable Speaker, I wish to congratulate you for assuming the office of the Speaker of Parliament, and I pray that the good Lord will guide you during your tenure of service. Honorable Speaker, you are aware that the Leader of Opposition, the office of Leader of Opposition was established in Parliament at the inception of the 8th Parliament, pursuant to the constitutional provision that restored party politics in Uganda. The office is represented by a number of able men and women, and their special role is to provide administrative service, the leadership of opposition. In the interest of time, I will not name everyone, but that is the team that supports the Leader of Opposition and supports you in running this institution. I thank you.
Thank you, Director. Right Honorable Speaker, Uganda's politics for time immemorial has known the role of initiating legislative policy making as mainly being a preserve of the executive. But in the spirit of accountability and servanthood service to the citizenry of Uganda, Mr. Speaker, and also in full execution of our cardinal role as opposition, keeping government in check. Our opposition leadership of the 11th Parliament, and I must single out the leader of the opposition for the tireless efforts we have had to champion key legislative pursuits as you will eventually be taken through. My clarion call in the brief remarks that I'm supposed to make is to the members, irrespective of your party affiliation. You must know that we are the forces of change. And the forces of change are only stronger when they work together. So what we need is synergy. Synergy literally is energy from blended sources. If we could synergize and work together, then the change that we are yearning for will come to pass, and pass damn soon. Lastly, I have an analogy of that synergy in heaven. It also works. Once upon a time, someone visited both heaven and hell. And I found a table with all manner of refreshments, all manner of meals, food, including white ants. Everything was there. But shockingly, in hell, those around the table were walking skeletons, were very thin, very frail. And in the opposite contrast, in heaven, those around the table were alive and well, very healthy. So he posed a question to the angel. He said, why? When the foods are the same, the arrangement is the same, but why this difference? He said that unlike in hell, in heaven, there is cooperation, and they have a stick. Each was given a stick like a fork to use for feeding. And the stick is 4 meters. So you cannot use a 4-meter stick to scoop food to your own self. So in heaven, they share with each other. One scoops with the stick, feeds the one opposite, and all of them feed each other. That's why they're healthy. But in hell, unlike in heaven, they hate each other, they envy each other, they backstab each other. They don't work together. They are not a body. For a body called the opposition to live, survive, and be alive and well, we need the parts of the body to cooperate. Short of that, the body will not survive. If the mouth denies them the teeth food, the stomach will not receive food. The stomach will starve. The body will die. So irrespective of our party affiliations, members, we ought to work together as opposition to ensure that our dream comes to pass. It is teamwork in the team spirit that will make the dream of change to come to pass. With those few remarks, Right Honorable Speaker, I once again want to salute you for honoring and gracing this rather auspicious social gathering of members of forces of change. I thank you, and God abundantly bless us.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nambeshe. Now, distinguished guests, I know that time is inelastic, and there are so many other activities that the Right Honorable Speaker is scheduled to attend. We shall explain as we go further. So we're going to go straight into the purpose of our function here today. So it gives me great honor to invite the leader of the opposition, Honorable Mathias Mpuga, to kindly come and lead us in the opposition legislative agenda for this, the 11th Parliament of Uganda.
It's very wet, this. The Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, distinguished heads of political parties here present, colleagues, members of Parliament, representatives of civil society, members from the media, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to make a humble embrace of time, because I'm alive to the fact that the Right Honorable Speaker has a journey to make. And I'd like to honestly welcome you and ask members to make a round of applause for the Right Honorable Speaker for finding time to grace this, our special day. Right Honorable Speaker, I compressed my communication in a few slides because I'm not making an address to a UPE class that requires a teacher-centered approach, but I'll headline the essence of this launch with a few slides that this heralds a national conversation that will shape subsequent conversations about the future of this country and the duty of leaders at different levels. But Lord Speaker and colleagues, this agenda is a humble collection of headlines. It's multifaceted, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Some of the issues therein have been canvassed before. We're only gathered here to offer them prominence so that we can generate a concerted stakeholder debate. And we are aware, Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, that Parliament is a platform of a formal nature. And because of officialdom around Parliament, we want to utilize this platform, this front, as others would want to call it, so that we can influence key legislations in this Parliament to inform the future of this country. Right Honorable Speaker, we are leaders of our people, but we are also aware that in this country, there's a tendency for citizens to fear their leaders. And this fear is not born out of respect per se, but the kind of fear that is born out of the habit by leaders to lie to their people. And it's a fear born out of, undeclared disrespect by the citizens for their leaders. And because of this fear, it has disabled public participation in the governance, and the government we more or less have a government where citizens are really detached in some instances. And as leaders, we are here to rekindle our duty to restore public trust in us as political leaders, communicate and offer possibilities to our people, try to work and rekindle lost dreams of our populations and aspirations, and allow citizens to dream and hope again. And because I did insist on headlining this presentation rather than lecturing about it, let me straight away go to my slides. They're basically less than 15. Right, Honorable Speaker, like I said, we are not reinventing the wheel. The first major undertaking that I am inviting members of the opposition to consider as key in what we think, dream, eat, reflect about are the possible constitutional and electoral reforms that we must prioritize. Some of what we are headlining today was shared more than 6 years ago in what we called the Citizens Compact, sometime around 2014, by civil society and political parties. But, Honorable Speaker, as you recollect, since 2014, this country has been promised a constitutional review commission. It has not come to fruition. Instead, we have had whimsical and small considered amendments to the Constitution. And the consequence of this is that the citizens now see the Constitution as a document of politicians, because a lot of debate has been going on about the Constitution and how its durability has over time been compromised. And we now, as the opposition, believe it's time for us to rethink this Constitution and consider key issues therein. Of course, in doing this, we are considering key issues. In the 10th Parliament, right, Honorable Speaker, you are aware, the Honorable Nwagaba did introduce a private member's bill to amend the Constitution. It's one of the saved bills for the 11th Parliament to consider. And we would like to make it a key matter. I have had conversations with some of the leaders of the opposition, and they were telling me that this was not considered as to were under the rules in the second sitting. But I'm also alive to the fact that the leadership of Parliament is considering to do this otherwise. And I'd rather that when it comes up, we are going to support this bill over the key amendments it's proposing, so that this Constitution becomes the consensus of the people. Because a Constitution per se is the people's consensus. It must speak the language, the dreams, the frustrations of the people must be debated and the consensus built over these aspirations. So we regard that bill as key in our endeavor over the next few months. Of course, aware and alive to this bill, because I was a member of the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, some other issues were not captured, and we intend to introduce a bill to capture key citizen aspirations. Some of them relate to matters that are very controversial in the public. One such is the size of Parliament, right, Honorable Speaker. If you talk about the size of Parliament, it sends a call down the spines of so many politicians in Parliament, and those aspiring. People say, I am dreaming to go to Parliament, then you want to cut the size. We believe that time is now to honestly discuss the size of Parliament, or whether we can rethink the nature of Parliament, whether to go for 2 layers of Parliament, an upper and lower Parliament. I know the Right Honourable Speaker as a key complainant of some of the flimsy issues that find their way in Parliament. We discuss sub-county borders in Parliament. We discuss goats crossing from one village to another. Some of these are issues that are supposed to be a preserve of sub-county, councils and district councils. But part of the problem is that Parliament, because of an unabated expansion, is losing the boundary of the matters that must come to Parliament. We believe part of it relates to the size. We want to discuss special groups in this representation of the Parliament. Of course, the current Constitution does make provision for their review. Our thinking is that this review must be considered with an extra level of reflection and mediation, and the undertaking that probably Some of them have lost their historical perspective and need to be rebated. The role of security agencies in elections is very key for us. You are a candidate for presidency. You got to participate in a campaign. You meet military generals in the field. They make sure it's impossible for you to campaign. The election is over. Then you meet members of parliament representing the army in the parliament. So what kind of conversation are you supposed to undertake as a political leader when you have a contestation between the military, the army, and the citizens, the ordinary citizens, and part of them are part of parliament, where a discussion about their same parliament is discussed? Talk about a monkey in a case of a forest. So we have to have a honest conversation. Right, Honorable Speaker, citizens in the diaspora and their contribution to this country is well known. The last parliament had made an attempt to have this conversation introduced. We lost it. No, we lost it in the 9th parliament under the Honorable Segona minority report from the Uganda Parliamentary Affairs Committee. That was discarded and not debated. The right of prisoners to participate in national elections, recruitment of and terms of service of EC commissioners. Can we make it possible to have a durable and trusted electoral commission where commissioners are appointed and a framework that is agreeable to all? After all, we are under a multi-party dispensation. For us, the current framework does not reflect a multi-party framework. It is linear, it has the tendency, it is tainted with partisanship, and some of the commissioners, I'm using the word some with reflection, some of them believe that their appointment is an act of magnanimity. We want to reconsider their appointment. Can we have the second slide very fast? Of course, the elected Honorable Speaker, the issue right up there is the elephant in the room that probably a lot of us would rather discuss in whispers. Power sharing are the key concept of governance. In that booklet, I have referred to decentralization as fossils of decentralization. Fossils, for those who have done environmental geography, relate to remains of dead animals and plants. If you open up a discussion, Honorable Speaker, today and colleagues, about the whole idea of decentralization, my sense is that it's a concept now in history. In practice, the country is progressively decentralizing, and it portends a huge danger to the idea that was framed in the Constitution of a political system by devolution via decentralization. The local governments today are as weak as non-existent. Their powers have been usurped. They act when the center feels it must act. Right, Honorable Speaker, I know one of my members, my shadow minister for local government, had an issue, had a motion, I think he's still processing it, to come to the House and ask the Parliament to revisit the directive by the Minister of Finance that directed local governments to collect funds and remit to the center before expenditure, because we are aware it was a directive in utter disregard of the law, and we want Parliament to debate it. But part of what informed that directive is now the desire to re-centralize and have power controlled. The question of the day, what is the fear at the center not to allow citizens in their local enclaves to determine their fate, and that the center must at all times determine and control what they think and their aspirations? We have the regional tier in the Constitution. It suffered a stillbirth, Honorable Speaker. And we can tell the reason why. For all the pomp and pageantry at its inception, it never took off. First of all, it was some form of, I might be wrong, but it was some form of conspiracy by politicians. It was never organic, the regional tier. the politicians then wanted to settle some scores and wanted to really score political points, but never took off. So can we now rekindle a debate about devolution of powers? What about awakening the question of sharing power through some form of, you see, when you talk about the federal question, people's minds race to their smaller enclaves. The whole idea of federal is devolution. We must discuss it. I was discussing some week ago with a Kenyan friend, a senator, and they was telling me they have moved a lot. Now they're actually moving to make sure that 45% of the revenues go to the regional governments. For us, we're actually collecting even the small there is at the government towards the center. Isn't it time for us to engage in a honest discussion about devolution of powers? We are going to actually to headline proposals, that Speaker, in a review, and we want Parliament to engage in this. We are going to make consultation as the opposition, and we shall engage members of Parliament to consider this. We are discussing about sharing resources and tie this arrangement in the Constitution with the formula not to have monies voted at the behest of an individual. When that individual is not happy, then of course the funds will not flow. And you have had statements, Mr. Speaker, from some politicians saying, you did not vote properly, you not get money. If you vote Matthias Impuga, your roads will not be constructed. Why does that happen? So we want to have this live debate about devolution of powers so that we can build an enduring and a durable democracy, right, Mr. Speaker. Of course, there's a debate, right, Mr. Speaker, as to whether the current constitution is just legitimate and lacks legitimacy. You know, when you have a constitution that's legitimate, of course, the law, the supreme law of the land, and people question its legitimacy, it's the question about whether it has that moral embrace from citizens as their consensus. Because the key contents is like a power sharing and not flimsy. They're not framed and coached in a language that undermines the power of the people when it comes to key issues like sharing resources. Mr. Speaker, we shall offer leadership on this matter because we have a fear right now that if we go by the current trends, power is reverting to the center. I have heard the president awarding contracts at press conferences. And that is very scary. He's now the PPDA. So local governments get grants from the president, and there's no framework that guarantees these grants. I remember the president chiding the former president, late president, Bina Issa, as making State House a clearing house. You know, I don't want to say, I will sound derogatory, that if at this rate, State House could become a roadside market. You know, where, you know, transactions are keen to exchange of Mokene, you know, platters take place. So we want to align these issues, right, Mr. Speaker. And I'm tasking my team to pick these issues and begin drafting the headlines for the conversation. Right, Mr. Speaker, let's go to the next slide and I'll be faster now. We have interest in the shape, structure, the funding of the healthcare system. I'm saying progressively we are commoditizing healthcare. It's becoming a commodity rather than a service. And I must confess that the key issues when we are discussing the National Healthcare Insurance Scheme were not considered. When you look at clearly now, you read through the major funding, the headline is that the funding will be private sector led. And this doesn't happen. Healthcare is a service. And the government must, as of necessity, be the major player. How do we, in other jurisdictions, healthcare funding by government has been capped. Can we, as Parliament, cap funding for healthcare so that we do not undermine this key service I remember in the 9th Parliament, right, Mr. Speaker, we put our foot down at some stage when government was reluctant to give extra pay to health workers. And we had a consensus in Parliament until government climbed down and more money was voted to healthcare. We want to revisit the National Health Care Insurance Scheme and offer caps to what government must do. We want to enhance, to make sure that there's enhancement of access and affordability. We bridge the human resource gap therein. We are aware, right, Honourable Speaker, of the thin spread of government health care facilities. And in some areas, the better facilities are owned by the private sector and the non-profit organizations. We're saying if you have a crisis of manpower, of human resource in the government facilities, why can't government second health workers, the private people, private institutions, and pay them from there? After all, they are providing service to the same people and there are no government facilities. But this must be housed in some legal, kind of framework. So that's not done at the mass of an individual. At the height of COVID, after lengthy public altercations and discussions, the Minister of Health assured us that they have now a conversation with the private sector and they want now to be seconding health workers to the private hospitals and facilities. This should be properly housed, and we want this conversation to happen. Can we go to the next slide? Education, just like healthcare, we believe the current framework of our education system, financing and access, does not speak the same language of the NDP3 and the Vision 2040. I have a cheeky friend who said that if you look at Vision 2040 and the nature of funding to education, somebody must have added another 0 on 40 to say Vision 2400. Because if the way the funding is done does not reflect a desire to achieve something in 2040. We want a debate about the capping of government funding of key education variables. Of course, the current law that was syndicated in 2008 on funding and relevant on development and regulation of education has limitations because it is open to what government can do. We want to legislate and ensure that government makes commitments by law on what it can do. Currently, government has increased funding to primary schools, grants, 10,000 per pupil, and in the secondary schools, 40,000 per pupil a whole year. It's not freemasoness, then perhaps somebody who said there's another 0 on 40 could be actually right. So we have tasked our Minister of Education to look at this law. We are going to make proposals for amendment, including the funding for higher education loan scheme, make it more democratic, make it more accessible. How does it contest? How does it fare, for example, with State House scholarships? How can you have, two government programs competing and one is only accessible by those who can access particular corridors of power and withdraw from the same resource envelope? We want these to be debated democratically by the House of Parliament, and we will make an invitation to both sides of the House to see sense in the need to democratize education, enhance access, and especially help the poor to access education. Can we proceed? Of course, part of the conversation in the education sector is closely related to the priorities in sports. You have one of the youngest populations as a country. What's the focus? Where is your bearing in ensuring that you harness this young population? Sports is one of the key areas, but we also know, Mr. Speaker, that one of the biggest threats to promoting sports is sports infrastructure. The emergence of arcades in most urban and peri-urban areas has wiped out sports infrastructure. But of course, you cannot blame that because the owners were private. the question of the day is where's government? The agency called government must be the one headlining investments in sports infrastructure. We want to ask our members of parliament when they are in budget formulation to make sure that every budget has the tendency of prioritizing investment in sports, identify and support talent, have a legal housing for the reward system for sportsmen and women. We had a debate in Parliament, Mr. Speaker, when our gallant sons and daughters brought medals for the Olympics. And the president was so generous, he considered to offer cars and I think some envelopes. We shall not be shocked if we found those cars on the market pretty soon, because the president probably woke up so happy. That threatens the sustainability of that kind of arrangement. We want a legal housing for the reward system. In other jurisdictions, Mr. Speaker, there are laws for even those who merely participate. So you work hard to participate. You have your reward defined as an Olympian, even before a medal is won. Then the medals, they are ranked and the reward is so ranked. At the moment, we do not know what will happen at the next Olympics, whether the president will offer choppers or will offer land. It's not sustainable. We want legal guarantees because we are here to legislate for posterity. Mr. Speaker, one of the invitations we must make if we are going to make a difference, sports is a business, but it's a very expensive business, so government must participate. But if we are to invite the private people to participate, then we must provide the incentives. We want to have a legal regime in the sports law that offers rebates to private investors in sports. If I want to put up a sports complex, I buy land and do it. Can then government offer me incentives in form of tax rebates on that investment so that I have the motivation to put resources into this? These are the kind of debates we want in sports financing going ahead, right, Mr. Speaker. And my ministers are aware of these views. They are going to pursue them in the committees. They're going to pursue them with motions and bills, right, Mr. Speaker. Can we continue? Expenditure that is regarded as nugatory in so many cases. It's the duty of Parliament to appropriate. Parliament does the checking of expenditure, provide accountability committees and other committees. We have issues of gaps in the Public Finance Management Act. They have been identified, and we are going to offer proposals by way of bills to make amendments on key components, that appropriations tightened to remove those fissures where public funds go unchecked, yet there are other key sectors that miss out at appropriation. We have a lot of problems with supplementary requests that are unending. At the end of the day, you see, the law is very clear. You can only ask for supplementary when resources are available. But the way things are, later, right, Mr. Speaker, so we have unfunded supplementaries. That's unthinkable. So it's a supplementary, but it's not, it comes and it's not funded and it passes. So how did it become a supplementary in the first place? So we need to look at these issues. And of course, when it comes to loans, a huge problem. We have underperforming loans. What was the motivation to borrow? We need to critically look at the legal regime that creates an unending appetite to borrowing, and then what we borrow is not utilized. We believe some of the borrowing could be reconsidered to take care of absorptive capacity and other possibilities. Right, Mr. Speaker, we are headlining a conversation, and we shall make an invitation for a robust debate devoid of partisan banter to allow members of parliament to scrutinize reason for borrowing, not really feel warmth about the fact that money will be available, yet absorption is very limited, Mr. Speaker. Can we continue? Corruption, the fastest growing sector in in this fair land. Of course, we are Parliament, and it's our duty to be the firewall between public expenditure and fair utilization of public resources. We are only saying we are going to sharpen our eyes, we are going to sharpen our availability, scrutinize expenditure. As the opposition, we are the leaders of the key committees of accountability. In this, we have set ourselves targets of reporting to Parliament. Mr. Speaker, you're aware one of the key limitations to accountability is reporting. We have set ourselves targets on how to regularly report from these committees, because when reports do not come out, then we have failed in one cardinal duty. How do you ensure accountability when you have failed to bring out issues of accountability as members of Parliament? I have had meetings with my leaders of the 4 committees, and we have agreed to the reporting framework and its regularity as part of the firewall that we need to erect to curb runaway corruption. We are also making innovations. Right, Mr. Speaker, Parliament does oversight visitations to the public, but they are not structured. We want to work differently. We have conjured up what we have described as visiting the victims of corruption. For every act of corruption, there are victims. But some victims are not aware. I have had the blame game where corruption has failed government programs. Blame has been apportioned. Blame on politicians, blame on members of Parliament, blame on witch doctors, blame on the rain, blame on everything, but not the corrupt. We want to engage the victims, because as we meet people who handle public resources, we are able to identify the victims of corruption. We want to enhance public participation in fighting corruption by making them aware every other day what they lose when they don't stand up against corruption. Mr. Speaker, can we proceed? Fiscal reforms. The challenge, Mr. Speaker, of course, part of what explains unearning borrowing is the size of our tax to GDP ratio. But there's a question as whether our fiscal framework can facilitate a growing tax to GDP ratio. My key people on finance are already working to make very robust proposals on how we can come up with fiscal reforms that will grow the tax to GDP ratio of the country as a way of enhancing revenue availability and reducing borrowing, enhance production, facilitate job creation. We have a problem on the V80 threshold at 18%. It's long overdue for review. In other jurisdictions, it has been reviewed to facilitate consumption and grow production. Why is the Uganda review long overdue? We are going to offer leadership, right, Mr. Speaker. We shall explain our reasons and shall offer the pathway on how this can be done. Of course, the debate on V80 on key services has been here with us. And we would like this time around Parliament to pronounce itself in the Parliament. We removed the VAT on water. As we speak, it is back. What happened? Then, because eventually, Mr. Speaker, the taxes on these key services later on translate into other sectoral afflictions. You tax water, then you grow waterborne diseases, then you spend on health. So are we being smart? We shall offer solutions, and we shall ask of the other side of the house on your right to listen and participate in this conversation. Of course, incentivizing local producers as part of growing production and creating jobs is a key invitation to the opposition, and we have solutions being thought through for presentation to Parliament and debate by the public. Can we continue? Right, Mr. Speaker, there is a debate that is on and off and is inconclusive about indigenous capital growth. Yesterday's papers, if I've not forgotten, carried a big scare I think it was the Daily Monitor, about the central bank raising the capital requirement for commercial banks. And of course, the biggest threat is on the locally owned banks. Have we elected to surrender the economy to other people? I'll not call them foreigners, other people, other players. So how do we support indigenous capital growth? Of course, we are the House of Parliament. We must evolve legislation that will buttress the capacity, the growth, and sustainability of the local people. We are proposing a review of the investment code. The 10th Parliament did some review. Our sense is that they were inconclusive. We need to revisit them. There's no legal bar to revisiting a law that was passed 3 years ago. We intend to revisit this and offer more support to local initiative that we can sustainably support and grow our economy and support the local people that have the initiative. One of the challenges, Right Honourable Speaker, I was looking at, for example, the USMID project funded by the World Bank to finance infrastructure in the 10 oligono municipalities, including my own. But if you look at the monies in billions voted on this project, there are no local players. All the contractors are foreign. So what happened? There's a problem here. There's something we're doing wrong and we're incapacitating our own. And before we know it, we shall be under capture. So how do we free local initiative? We need to have robust legislation that can support the local initiative, the local people to be creative, because they are more reliable. Their investments should be more enduring and more predictable because they are citizens. We need to support them by housing legislation that will offer these possibilities. Media and communication, Right Honourable Speaker. Of course, we have our eyes on reviewing the Uganda Communication Act 2013. I remember there was an outcry from media practitioners that the law was made by politicians, to facilitate their frustrations and ambitions over the day. It was never consultative. We have educated ourselves on these challenges and we are going to come up with proposals. Under the current law, we have a regulator who is an eternal complainant. He's the complainant, he is the judge, and at will, he takes arbitrary decisions. We want to legislate against this arbitrariness under the current law so that we can promote community broadcasting and also reduce the digital divide in our communities. I'll use the next 5 minutes and take leave. We have our eyes on the employment laws, Right Honourable Speaker, so that we take care of the emerging challenges when companies restructure, when companies, for example, there's a debate on the merger of government agencies, and already in the committees where the Speaker sent these conversations, the debate is emerging about employees that have been not taken care of by the merger, debate. So we need to have these properly housed. Trade Unions Act, we have eyes on it. Under the current law, when you're in a trade union, you're not supposed to associate with political parties. Then that again is the spirit of the Constitution, freedom of association. Hitherto, trade unions and cooperative societies incubated and grew leaders. When they collapsed, I will not speak about the product of politicians now, but we know the difference between the crop and the caliber of political leaders that were incubated from these arrangements. We think it's irregular, it's unconstitutional to lock out particular sections of society from participating in the affairs of this country. But we have made and elected proposals that we need to be debated. Proceed. The environment, enforcement, and audit. Who are the people that have raised down the entire vegetation cover of this country? Are they politicians? Are they witch doctors? Are they medicine men and women? We need an audit. of forests and wetlands, but needs a legal framework to undertake that audit, as well as the mineral licensing regime that was undertaken in 2000. It has gaps. We're proposing reviews on it. We want them to be debated. And with a view of re-empowering people that are within regions that have mineral wealth. The problems in Mubende are alive with us. The problems in Karamoja and other places are alive with us. Our people need to be supported to benefit from the country's mineral wealth. Close to an end, fisheries. The debate in the fisheries sector is in Parliament, right, Honourable Speaker. The problems that are awash. Can we demilitarize the sector? Can it comply to sustainability? Can we enhance community involvement and benefit? What is happening to the people that are being displaced? The community that have only known fishing as their source of bread and butter. What's happened to them when the military, on whose behalf is the military working on so many learning sites, displacing communities and killing citizens in the name of protecting fisheries? But we know there are legal gaps who want to be addressed, Right, Honourable Speaker. Right, Honourable Speaker, we are doing this in the spirit of accountability and service. And as the opposition, it's a shared struggle. The array of honourable men and gentlemen here, Right, Honourable Speaker, are a representation of the desire by the alternative to work different so that we can win back the trust of the people, the confidence, the possibilities ahead, and enjoying the rest of Parliament to think about us not as a group of political wannabes, but as a group of people capable of making the difference, but we need an opportunity and a platform. And the speaker with us here, this is your conversation. We are alive to what you have so far shared with the Parliament. These members here, Right, Honourable Speaker, and those represented are willing to be part of the platform to join you in shaping the role, the duty of Parliament in enhancing national cohesion, growth, and political durability. I thank you so much for governing my country.
I think Ugandans are very conservative when it comes to clapping. I think that deserved a much better applause than that. Thank you very much. I think the leader of the opposition has been extremely candid and raised several topical areas that will be the focus of discussion going forward. Now, even as the Right Honourable Speaker collects his thoughts, with your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, we have always had a tradition in Parliament that we have a minute or two to stretch in the middle of activities. This is in regard to our health and also in support of sports. Now, Coach Bob is in our midst here. He would have wanted much more time, but I've only given him 1 minute. 1 minute to kindly come and help us with our stretches before we can hear the thoughts of the Right Honourable Speaker. Thank you, Coach.
May we please stand up? Hands up. Maximize time. Physical activity is a responsibility for all of us human beings. We go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And we clap. Second.
and 9 and 10. Thank you very much, Coach. Now, it gives me great honor to invite the Right Honorable Speaker to kindly come and share his thoughts.
Mike, want to speak without the mic. Right. Good morning. I've requested that this whole thing be sanitized so that I can speak without a mask. Is that okay? So breathe, please keep your masks on so that I'm under no threat, especially the Honorable Basaru. Thank you. Honorable members, it gives me enormous pleasure to stand before you as the opposition in Parliament and go through with you your thoughts in how we shape the agenda of this country to make it focus better on the national interest, better service delivery. And as I keep saying, the president, I said, will be using the parish model. To what extent does it work in our favor? And when I say in our favor, I mean in favor of the people who sent us here. The leader of the opposition, I thank you for inviting me. You have this bad habit of giving me really short notice. And sometimes I find it conflicting with my other programs. But respecting you, I always bend my program, but it should not become a habit. Because next time I'm going to refuse. He only told me yesterday in the afternoon. How kind is that? The leaders of the parties here, I see all the big people here. I even see Honorable Bill of UPC. I see all the leaders of the political parties that are represented in Parliament. But if you look at the arrangement of flags there, it starts with Uganda. And that is significant, it's symbolic. Starts with Uganda. And Uganda means its peoples. And that's our focus as a parliament. The subsequent lining up of the flags is secondary. It's not first. It follows from the flag of Uganda, not any other flag. That means we have a duty and an obligation to our country and our people. I see the Lord Mayor. I am trying to memorize a word that he has created that will become so popular, mujoga. The Honorable Lukwago is so fond of these quips. I'm not talking about the other ones, which make people laugh sometimes when they are held badly. Honorable members, let's keep our eyes on the ball. And what is the ball is this country and its people. The ball is not the regime. A focus on the regime is a narrow focus, it's a wrong focus. The focus must be on the country and the people. Regime change is different from country destruction. Those two are very different. Regime and country are different. Let's focus on country. The constitutions give us the avenue of regime change. Every 5 years, we try and fail, we try and fail. And the only reason you are in the opposition is because at the time of elections, you didn't have the numbers. So you spend the next 5 years slowly, strategically building those numbers that you have never had in the last elections. And you cannot build these numbers by chaos. You build these numbers by using your power of persuasion, not the persuasion of power. It's a duty. It's a strategic obligation on the opposition to make sure this happens. Build the numbers gradually. You have 5 years, a month, another month, building numbers slowly. When the next time elections come, we have no challenge. I had a conversation with the Right Honorable Raila Odinga in 2001 at Sabasaba Hotel in Arusha. We sat with him, was with his brother Oburu. At that time, he had just joined Kano of Moi. And all of you remember that Moi had imprisoned him for 7 years. I asked him, what madness is this? Did you have to join Kanu? He kept quiet. Then he said, Kijana, the only reason you stay in the opposition is because you never had the numbers when the elections were called. And then he paused. And then he said, when I am through with Kano, you will see. True to his words, 3 months later, this was November, I think. 3 months later, around February, March, Raila walked out of Kano with almost everybody, and formed a party that eventually caused change in Kenya. That should be your focus. Do not behave as if the opposition is your place. Behave as if you are a government in waiting. A government in waiting. I had an experience in South Sudan when I used to do things there. During the war, they destroyed all the railways. During the war, they destroyed all the factories. When they came to government, they didn't have railways, they didn't have factories. And then one of the leaders said, why did we do this? You need this infrastructure. You need these things that are already in place. Because, as I said earlier, regime change is not about destruction. The fundamentals of change of regime are in the Constitution. If we follow them, we cause change, peaceful change. It's like this building. There's this room. We can choose to have the front here, or there, or there. We can choose to collapse the walls because they are collapsible. But when we begin to attack the pillars and the columns of these buildings, we have exceeded what we should be doing. So let's remove the curtains, change the colors of the curtains, change the podium, turn the table the other side. But let's not tamper with real foundation and structural arrangement of this building. And that is the Constitution and our country. We should focus on those things. Keep our eyes on the ball. There's a prayer that we pray in Parliament every day without actually understanding the extent to which the indictment is, the charge is, the conviction is. This prayer convicts us as parliamentarians. Let me read it for you. You only always listen in a somber mood because you are humbling yourself, or at least pretending to bring God in your presence. The last paragraph of this prayer. Let your blessings descend upon them here assembled, and grant that they may, as in your presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under their deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory and to advance the good of those whose interests you have committed to their charge. That's your prayer. Every day you enter that house, you pray that prayer. Does it have meaning to you? Those people whose interests have been to commit our charge is our true magnetic north. Shake the compass the way you want. Let it settle. The needle will go back to the north. True magnetic north. Shake the parliament the way you want, but when it's settled, let our focus go back to the people. That's the only way. When we are done and time has passed, they'll say, there came a group of leaders appointed by God for us and for our purposes, and we have truly seen real leaders. Let's not lose focus on that. The purpose of this meeting, I suppose, is lined with a song I really like by a guy called Harrison. It's called Any Road. And in his, I think those parts that are repeated are called what? Chorus. He says, if you don't know where you are going, any road will take you there. If you do not know where you are going, any road will take you there. I suppose that is why the leader of the opposition convened this meeting, so that we structure where we want to go. We have a clear vision of a destination, and we structurally work towards it in a systematic way. I suppose that's why you've called this meeting. I suppose that's why you have provided these very broad frameworks of your area of engagement and how you want to invite Parliament, the entire Parliament, without any shade of color, to join you in doing just that. And let me tell you something. You have the Speaker's full support. But let me also say this, let's avoid focusing too much on the politics. Politics, as I understand it, has never made that child change his status, has never made that woman who is suffering in the villages change her status. I have never improved on the condition of that old man who is suffering from series of diseases. Can I have some water, please? I'm not coordinated, so my mouth is drying. My mind is elsewhere. So, ladies and gentlemen, as a parliament, and as political parties, and as leaders, I will re-echo to you word of an author whose identity I have not been able to establish. Must be from Russia. And he said this: we don't mind what turn history will make, but will not allow history to make any turn without our participation. We don't mind what turn history will make, but we will not allow history to make any turn without our participation. The question is, what kind of participation? The question is, what kind of energy do you put in this participation to influence the course of history. I suppose it is positive energy. I believe it is positive energy. I invite you, honorable members, to deploy positive energy while we engage in these things that affect our people. Let's stop pulling. Let's start pushing gently until we achieve for our people what they deserve. The leader of the opposition talked about cooperation. Was it the leader of the opposition or the whip? About the things in heaven and hell. I hope you have not been in any of them. Because you told the story as if you are an eyewitness. As a cooperator, I studied cooperatives. The symbolism was of two goats that were tied in one rope. One neck tied, the other goat's neck tied, one rope. At the beginning, the goats pull the ropes. This one wants to eat that part of the grass, this one wanting to eat the other. So they pulled and pulled and pulled. And the grass that was just near them, because of the pulling, they destroyed. Then I think one of the goats became wise. I said, but why don't we go and first eat the other one, then eat the other one, then eat the other one? So they now collapsed the rope, stood together, moved and started eating, and they enjoyed, and they grew fat, like those ones who were putting 4-meter spoons, as if impossible, in the mouth of the other. There's a widening gap between legislatures and the people. Our duty is to bridge that gap. The bridge has decayed. The nails have collapsed. The concrete has dissolved. It is our responsibility as leaders of this time, parliamentarians of this time, without any shade of color, to start this reconstruction of this bridge building between parliament and the people. And that is the call I made to you all when I said, I want to be what I am now. And thank God you supported me to be there. Let's build these bridges. Let's help our people. Okay, do I have a bill? Devolution of power, the size of parliament. I think we have spoken about this. Issue of regional tier. I was the chair of the legal committee then when we discussed this. It was not so much what the leader of the opposition said. The proposal was to come somewhere in the middle, make concessions, because there were pressures from all the leaders. We want this, we want this. So what's the middle ground? Let's create regional governments. It was kind of a compromise based on historical things. I was chairing the legal committee there. I met leaders from the kingdom. We had very good discussions. At the day I was presenting my report on those issues, 2 elders were brought elders from Buganda, and they said they had sworn never to cut their beards until Federo was returned in Uganda. These are heavily emotional things. We should not just discuss them in passing. But what is the essence of federation? Different kinds. We have many federal governments, but how did they come in place? There are different types of how you get a federation in place. There's what they call coming together federation. We are federating units voluntarily. Say, divided, we are weaker, let's come together and form a federal government. They call it the coming together federation. There's the bringing together federation. where things force people to federate, or whether by law or by other things. If you want me to give a lecture on this on another day, I'll do it. Right now, I don't have the time. Because sometimes we talk about things we hardly know. But because they are popular, we also join and say, oh, but you don't know it. I like all the other 12 heads you have posed in the discussions that you intend to bring to Parliament. I had mentioned of State House scholarship. To my knowledge, this has been abolished. And to date, no money has been assigned to it. It has moved now to what they call students' loan scheme. There's no more State House scholarship, to my knowledge. Reviewing legislation is part of what we must do, because we'll discuss this another day. There is pre-legislative scrutiny when a bill is brought, like they are going to be brought, and we are going to examine them, asking questions about their fitness for purpose, checking how they affect people's rights and all the other things. Then we take a decision on what we must remove and what we must retain, or what we must add to make the law work. But when that law is passed and is being implemented, as a house, we have a duty to carry out what we call post-legislative scrutiny. How is it working? Is it working according to the framework we agreed? Are there diversions? And this is where I support benchmarking. You passed a law, it's in implementation, is having issues. Similar laws have been passed in other countries. How did they do it? Why is theirs working and ours not working? You come back as a parliament, you look at the frameworks you have, and you say, no, there's a problem here. You review the law. So the leader of opposition, you're right on point to say there must be post-legislative scrutiny, and I support you on that. I support this way and method of work. And let me tell you, it's the first time. That means we have looked at all other ways of doing things. They have not really worked, because essentially what works is what counts. This is going to work. Right, Honorable. And that's why it never come to me to ask for support. I already have it. Just ask me what to do, and we'll jointly do it. With these few words, this meeting is open. God bless you.
Like I said, as Ugandans, please clap. I think there has been an immense amount of wisdom dispensed today. And I may not be the right person to thank you, Mr. Speaker. But I also know I will not water down anything that has been said. But the Speaker has been very clear when he says the leader of the opposition has got his full support. So that is something that we shall keep in mind. Now, I'm sure all of you know with great sadness that one of the gallant sons of Uganda is being laid to rest today. And the Right Honorable Speaker is expected to be there. And that is the reason why he will not be with us throughout the rest of our discussion. However, this being a unique occasion as it is, with your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, I would like to invite the leaders of the political parties, the whips, the mayor, to come and join the Right Honorable Speaker in a group photograph on the steps of Parliament. at which juncture we shall allow the Right Honorable Speaker to take his leave. But just before we do that, can we give him another round of applause for his words of wisdom? So without any further ado, I will kindly ask that we rise to our feet. And the persons that have been invited, the whips of the parties, the party leaders, the Lord Mayor, I'm sure this will be a full representation of our team here. Now, in the spirit of winding down the presence of the Right Honorable Speaker, but not the function, I will kindly ask that we sing one stanza of the East African anthem and one stanza of the Uganda anthem to see him off. And just to re-emphasize, immediately after everybody else, we shall continue with this function. So as we take the group photograph, we shall invite you to get a cup of tea at the back, and we shall continue with the function shortly after. And we would like to thank especially the television stations that are relaying this live. Mr. Speaker, this is live on NBS television, and it's also live on BBS Telefaina. So we thank you for continuing to broadcast what we have here today. So the East African anthem, please. E Mungu twaomba uilinde Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya. O Uganda, may God uphold thee. We lay our future in thy hand. United, free for together we'll always stand. So please remain standing as we see off the Right Honorable Speaker. So could the teams that we identified please join the Right Honorable Speaker for a photograph on the steps of Parliament. Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I invite you to kindly come and join us with a cup of tea. Behind the flags, behind the draping, we shall have a tea. And thereafter, when the leader of the opposition joins us again, we shall continue with the rest of the program, starting with the recognition of the shadow cabinet in Parliament here. Thank you very much.
I just needed the company.
Distinguished guests, I hope everybody has had an opportunity to stretch their legs or grab a cup of coffee or some water. We are now ready to proceed with the second part of our program for the day. Immediately after this, we're going to have the inauguration of the shadow cabinet. So could I invite the shadow cabinet to please finish up with your water, with your tea, with your coffee, so that we can proceed with the formal function of inaugurating you into the shadow cabinet. So let all the shadow cabinet members please be on standby for the next session. Thank you. Could you kindly take up your seats again? Could you kindly take up your seats so that we can proceed with the next part of our function? Allow me to invite the General Counsel, Mr. Pius Birubonoha, to kindly come and take us through the next part of our function. What we shall have next is the inauguration of the shadow cabinet. The shadow cabinet will be taking their oaths, and the General Counsel is going to explain to us the procedure that they will take, taking into consideration the distancing as well as safety today. Counsel, please.
No, I don't think it's okay. Thank you very much, Peter. The Honorable Leader of the Opposition in Parliament, the Honorable Commissioners, the Government and Opposition Chief Whips, the Party Whips, Members of Parliament, distinguished leaders of political parties who are present, His Worship, the Lord Mayor, members of the press, my colleague members of staff, distinguished guests. My role is to have or to observe the honorable members of the shadow cabinet take their oath in order to form the shadow cabinet. I would like to propose that this is how we are going to do it, having consulted the Honorable, the Leader of the Opposition. Because of time, we shall have all the members, the shadow ministers, led by the Shadow Attorney General. They'll come to the front. I'll give each one of them their oath, the oath they are going to read out. The oath already has your name filled in and the position to which you have been nominated or appointed. So you'll collectively read your oath, at the end of which you will then sign the oath on the line that is provided there. Then there are 4 copies of the oath. You then hand them back . Thank you. So I'll give 4 copies of each to each member with your name. So you will sign and then hand them back to me because I need to commission them as a commissioner for oaths. And then a copy will be given back to you. I hope I have been clear on the procedure that we are going to use in order for the honorable members of the shadow cabinet to take their oath. Thank you very much, Peter. I think we are ready to proceed. Thank you. Should I call it? Okay, I'll read one by one so that you can come. I give you a copy of your oath. You stand before us. Now, because we have only one Bible and one copy of the Holy Quran, I will give to one person, one to the one Bible, and then the other to the Quran. Then the rest of the members will raise their right hands as they take the oath. Thank you. I don't know if Honorable Niwagaba Wilfred, the Shadow Attorney General, is around. He's not around. Okay, Honorable Shamim Malende. They have the Quran. Just stand here. No, I'm going to call all of them to come. Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi. Honorable Nantongo Fortunate. Is she around? Honorable Katsabe Atkins. Just take it. Just take it. Honorable Katsabe Atkins. Honorable Nyeko Derek. Yeah. Honorable Abed Bwanika. Honorable Abed Bwanika, I think I said. Honorable Nabukenya Brenda. Honorable Odur Jonathan. Honorable Chuanuka Abdallah. Honorable Batua Timothy Lusala. Honorable Batua. Honorable Sivambi Yusuf. Honorable Kawalia Abubakar. Honorable Nkunyinji Muwada. Honorable Balimwezo Ronald Nsuga. Honorable Nyakato Asinansi. Honorable. Honorable Masava Karim. Honorable Kabuye Frank. Honorable Kabuye Frank. Honorable Mwijuche Francis. Honorable Naruima Betty Ethel. Ethel, I think. There you go. Honorable Nabukeda Hanifa. Around. And we have one. Honorable Kaya Christine Nachimuero. Honorable Namuga Goreth. Honorable Chiaga Hilary Innocent. Honorable Anna Deke Ebaju. Honorable Bagala Joyce Mtwatwa. Honorable Okot Santa. Honorable Olanya Gilbert. Honorable Tevandeke Charles. Honorable Tevandeke Charles. Honorable Kayemba Solo. Okay. Is there anyone I've left out? I don't think so. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, honorable members. I'll now invite you to raise your right hands. Perhaps. Yeah. Could I invite the Honorable LOP perhaps to also come in the front just to stand at witness as the members of the shadow cabinet take their oath. Okay, so each one of you will read your oath. We shall read together. And then remember, the first line there, you write your name, the date, then that first dotted line, you sign, and then you return to me all the 4 copies so that I can commission them. Okay, can we then start? I. Okay, thank you very much. Please again sign, write your name, and return to me all the 4 copies. I'll give you one of your copies. Thank you very much.
Could we, especially all of us, the ordinary wananchi, could we give a round of applause to the new shadow cabinet? Now, I'm sure as the General Counsel was starting his presentation, you noticed that we had been joined by one very eminent person, the president of NUP in Uganda. So could we give him a round of applause? Honorable Chagulanyi Robert Sentamu, you are most welcome. You have joined us at an opportune time, and you have witnessed the shadow cabinet taking their oaths. And I'm sure their loyalty has now been sworn to the office of the leader of the opposition. We have had a really fruitful discussion so far with a presentation from the leader of the opposition on the legislative agenda and an address by the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament in which he vowed to give his full support to the office of the leader of the opposition. So once again, you're most welcome. We appreciate your presence here today. Now, our distinguished guests, I know we have several eminent persons in our midst, and at this juncture, I'm going to start inviting a few of them to kindly come and make remarks. Before I go into the political, I'm sure you all know that we are in the jurisdiction of Kampala City. So allow me to invite the Lord Mayor to kindly come and give us a few remarks on what he has observed today. And thereafter, I shall also invite a few other persons in our midst. So Lord Mayor, you're most welcome.
This is making me. Excuse me. The president of NUP, Honorable Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu, and the leadership of NUP, the leader of opposition, the opposition chief whip, members of shadow cabinet, all of you honorable members of parliament representing different constituencies, all the invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor and privilege for me to stand before you this morning on this very great occasion to make some remarks on the platform that has just been launched here today. I take this opportunity first and foremost to salute you, the president of NUP, whom I'm sure has facilitated the process and also made it possible for us to register a very big mileage and make a footprint in Parliament. I salute you very much. I salute the leaders of political parties who are here, who have also put in enormous efforts to ensure that we make a contribution to the transformation of this great nation. The leader of opposition and your team, this is a historic moment. As observed by the Right Honorable Speaker, Indeed, it's unprecedented. I was here personally in the 8th Parliament. I was a member of the shadow cabinet, serving in the capacity of the Shadow Attorney General and Shadow Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. We had our own trials and tribulations, our own challenges. I was here with the Honorable Alisa Lasso, who is in our midst here, and a couple of others. We did our best, but probably the environment could not allow us to come up with a platform of this nature. So this is a new development, which I really appreciate, and I must sincerely congratulate you, the leadership of the opposition in Parliament. We thank you very much. In the same vein, I wish to convey a message of hope to you all, the leaders, that much as we are encountering these challenges, we must not lose sight of the fact that the goodwill of the people is with us. That's critical. You carry on your shoulders the goodwill of the people. I implore you, as you pursue this agenda, we do uphold and jealously guard the will of the people. It's important. We shouldn't abuse it. We should use it in the best interests of the people who sent you here. I listened attentively to the speech of the speaker here, and I wouldn't want to repeat the same. But I was intrigued by a statement he made. And that will be my own observation, and I take leave. That we can change the the chattels in this building, but not the fixtures. That's the way I understood him. I loved that imagery. That the foundation, the structural framework should not be shaken, or else the building will collapse on our heads. That we can collapse all these decorations and whatever, but we should not dare touch the foundation. That's a powerful statement. I remember I was still a young man in 1995 when the new constitution was promulgated. Actually, my first time to cast a vote was in 1994 in the CA. That's when I became eligible to vote. My first time to vote was to elect CA members. Of course, as a young man, I tried to follow what was happening in the house here as they were promulgating the 1995 constitution. I made very little contribution because I was young, just like many of you here. So the constitution was made by our fathers. Majority of you who are here, you did not participate in the conversation at that time. But you ask what informed the trajectory that is enshrined within that particular constitutional document and the new constitutional order that was ushered in by that particular document. Does it still hold? So you were faced with a challenge, a very big one, that we are coming up with a lofty legislative agenda, a very beautiful one. I love the presentation made by the leader of opposition here. Words of wisdom, very encouraging, very promising. But I'm afraid Do we have a conducive environment in which those ideas can flourish? That's the challenge you have. That the cardinal role of parliament is to legislate, is to come up with legislations in this country. And the bedrock of that is rule of law, nothing else. So the big question we have to ask ourselves, as we pursue this legislative agenda, do we have that enabling constitutional framework? Do we have that critical environment we need of constitutionalism and the rule of law in the country? If the answer is in the negative, certainly the legislative agenda, I'm sorry to sound skeptical, will come to a naught. So as you pursue the legislative agenda here, the message I want to put across, we must strive to ensure that there is constitutionalism in this country. It's the only way we can realize the ideals of this platform. The good ideas we have here, it's only in that situation where you have a functional state, a functional institutional framework, and also a functional parliament. It's only that. So I implore you, members, as we embark on this journey, let us not lose sight of the fact that the environment under which we're operating is very hostile. Very, very hostile. That's why I implore you to focus on the pillars the speaker was talking about. Those pillars of the Constitution, those pillars on which the state is anchored, they are shaky. I loved the idea the speaker brought on table, which is akin to what is happening across the border here in Kenya, the BBI arrangement. He said, let us build bridges. The nuts and bolts are all rotten. The concrete is also in shambles. That is a terrible situation for us in the country. So rebuilding that bridge requires a lot of commitment on all the stakeholders. The big question we have to ask ourselves, is there a goodwill? I know this is bipartisan, but is there a goodwill on the other side of the aisle? Is there a goodwill to have new consensus for the destiny of this country? Is there a goodwill to chart a way forward, to build a new trajectory anchored on the existing constitutional order? Lastly, Mr. LOP, in the wonderful platform, the only contribution I can make is that we should find a way of coming up with a legal instrument that would operationalize Article 3 of the Constitution, which is so fundamental. I know Article 44 is now operationalized. Article 44 is about non-derogable rights. I can see many of us here. We have walked that journey of activism, fighting for human rights and rule of law, constitutionalism and whatnot. But we didn't have that robust framework. But at least now on paper, there is an instrument made by Parliament about enforcement of rights, the rights which are absolute under Article 44. Today you can appear in a court and ask court to dismiss a charge outrightly because the suspect brought before court has been mistreated in the pre-trial processes. Maybe has been incarcerated incommunicado, has been tortured while in detention, has been suffered all those kinds of injustices and mistreatment. Court can base its decision on that fact and dismiss the charges. Now, when it comes to Article 3, what framework do we have? I said, and I want to conclude on this particular point, I was still a very young man. See, our fathers who came up with the idea of resistance and entrenched it in our constitution. Is it there for cosmetic purposes? In Article 3, there is a provision for resistance against all unconstitutional tendencies. The question lingering on my mind, and I think many of you, how do we exercise the freedom to resist all forms of injustices within the parameters of Article 3? How do we do that? So I think we need to critically reflect on that in the situation we're obtaining in the country today, which I believe calls for all stakeholders to look at the provisions of Article 3 to save our nation. I thank you. I wish you all the best. May God bless you.
I thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Thank you for those very kind and deep words. I think the Lord Mayor has left us with so many things to think about. I had actually forgotten that he is a politician, and it is very difficult to limit the words of a politician. I'm also hoping that he has spoken on behalf of most of the people here. However, there are just a few other people that we need to listen to before we close our session today. So I'm going to invite, as a partner from the civil service, Ms. Sarah Birete, who is the ED of the Center for Constitutional Governance. I'll ask you to come and please use not more than 2 minutes. Thereafter, we shall invite the political parties to kindly come and give us a word. The order that we shall follow is a member from Uganda People's Congress. The Secretary General is here, Honorable Freddie Bill, followed by the Justice Forum, Honorable Asman Basaliwa will represent here. The Democratic Party, a representative, and we shall have the President of the National Unity Platform closing on behalf of the political parties before we totally wind down by the leader of the opposition presenting a few gifts to some of the people in attendance. So Ms. Birete, 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our Master of Ceremonies, the President, National Unity Platform Party, Leader of Opposition, various members of Parliament present here, distinguished ladies and gentlemen in your different capacities. On behalf of civil society fraternity in this country, we are very grateful, Leader of Opposition, for inviting us to witness this historic occasion of launching the alternative legislative agenda for the first time in Uganda's history. It's a very exciting moment for us as actors on governance, and the agenda covers all the critical governance areas that we have been working on over a period of time in this country. Our country is at crossroads in terms of constitutionalism, governance, with the key challenges that I'm going to highlight here. Our biggest challenge is gross violations of human rights. As Parliament, the only hope to put a break on the abuse of human rights in this country lies in your hands. Leader of Opposition, you are in charge of accountability committees. there cannot be any accountability when the people that are paid by a taxpayer to protect them are murdering and torturing them. We need accountability on human rights violations in this country. We need to see the people who violate human rights being punished, being removed from our security forces. They do not deserve to put on the uniform that the citizens pay for. The second challenge that we have in this country is corruption. Many people have spoken about this, and I will not really re-emphasize it, but I will only speak about the unfortunate abuse of COVID funds. At the beginning of COVID, the head of state of this country is on record for having said that whoever violates the standard operating procedures of this country commits attempted murder. And one of the members of parliament fell victim of that. But I think the people who abused the COVID funds and caused multiple deaths in this country committed murder, and they must be brought to book. We have the skyrocketing public debt. The recommended borrowing levels for any country is 50% of GDP. As we talk today, we are at 55% of GDP in terms of borrowing. This is a burden to our children and grandchildren. It's unacceptable. And the most unfortunate thing is that there is no value for this money. Our dear leader of opposition, these issues are in your hands, in your docket, and as civil society, we are watching, and the citizens are watching. We have a challenge of bloated public administration cost in this country. Whereas our foreign policy promotes regional integration and building bigger blocks, when we get back home, we promote disintegration, both at national and subnational level, through creating multiple minute administrative units that are not sustainable, that cannot deliver service, and are just created as a wasteful expenditure of taxpayers' money. I was glad that this was well captured in your legislative agenda. When this was happening in Kenya, the Parliament of Kenya moved to create a law and conditions for creating administrative units with a minimum size of population and minimum resources that unit must have. We are not an exception, and we hope our dear leader of opposition with your MPs, you can cause this to happen in Uganda. The second last challenge I will talk about is your first legislative agenda on credible, free and fair elections and electoral reforms. This is closer to civil society. It's very unfortunate that for 6 decades, the nation called Uganda and the Pearl of Africa cannot organize a credible, free and fair election. And we have never, no Ugandan has ever witnessed peaceful handover of power. Very, very unfortunate. We need credible electoral reforms at several angles, as you have clearly mentioned. And I'm sure you have 100% support of the citizens of Uganda on this matter. The second last point I will mention is on need for proper regulation of the creative industry. Our dear leader of opposition, I did not hear this come out, but I know you mentioned about innovations and the need to create jobs. It is important to note that other than ICT, that creates e-commerce and other job opportunities for young people to earn online, the second biggest employer is the creative industry. I'm sure many of you know what is happening with even interventions on COVID, where an individual that does not hold any government office is busy dishing out money with no proper regulation, with no oversight, with no requirements. And we need your intervention in that sector. But beyond that, we need to benchmark from Kenya and create a copyright regulatory authority in this country, so that the people who earn through their creations are properly regulated, facilitated, and enabled to develop, because it is part of our national development as a country. Lastly, and I know many people will talk about this, we have a crisis of funding when it comes to political parties. It's a big governance dilemma. We have limitations that are undemocratic, that are unfounded in any multi-party dispensation, and those funding limitations must be removed. With those few remarks, our dear leader of opposition and your team, I bring you regards from the civil society fraternity, and we are fully committed to supporting this agenda. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sarah Birete. On behalf of civil society, thank you for those challenging, deep thought out words. Now, I omitted somebody. I think when they say everyone should catch the eye of the speaker, in this instance, I almost did not catch the eye of the representative from the Alliance for National Transformation. So to correct this wrong, allow me to invite Honorable Alice Alaso to kindly come and speak to us in 1 minute. Honorable Alaso is the acting national coordinator for ANT, Alliance for National Transformation. And Honorable Leader of the Opposition, I beg that you give us the power to switch off the microphone if they exceed 3 minutes. Honorable, you're most welcome.
The President of NOP, Right Honorable Leader of the Opposition, the Shadow Cabinet, Members of Parliament, my colleagues, leaders of political parties. I bring you greetings from the Alliance for National Transformation. And we consider it such a great privilege to be in this gathering, LOP, because we are not represented in Parliament yet. And so when you think of us and you invite us here, we do not take it for granted. It's a real privilege to be here. Let me congratulate you, LOP, and the Shadow Cabinet, your entire team, committee leaders, upon assuming this very important responsibility. I already did that before. I just want to remind you, you are the face, you are the eyes, you are the mouth, you are the hands of the opposition and all Ugandans who think differently from the way the NRM runs this country. So I told the Baptist Honorable some time back that you are all we have. You can imagine what responsibility is in your hands. And so we are very grateful, therefore, because you are taking strides that we probably didn't expect you to take within this short time. This is the first of all firsts, and I am really amazed that within a few months, you're presenting this nation with an alternative agenda. Leader of the opposition, I think it is important just to say one thing. It matters where this agenda will go, how it will be consumed and whatever. But for me, the fact that you've come out and presented it is extremely important. You recall we've been here together. You recall how much we've been told that we oppose for the sake of opposing, you have nothing credible to offer, and you go on radio, they're saying the same thing, you come to the house, they're saying, so now, whether they consider it, whether it goes beyond this conference hall, you've scored the first goal. You presented an agenda, and for which we are very, very grateful to you. We will be, as the ANT, probably putting in a word or two. And I want to imagine that, well, the issues of human rights and COVID management have already been said, and you had already issued something along those lines. But I want to imagine that alongside this agenda will be the overriding thing about those issues that are very urgent to this nation. One of the things that is really going wrong in Uganda, and we don't seem to be seeing it, is the destiny of our children, the education in this country. It doesn't matter what anybody will tell us about why not to open schools when children in the neighborhood are studying in Rwanda, in Kenya, wherever. As long as we close our eyes to that, 10 years from now, everybody will be held to account because we ignored this very important dimension. So I want to encourage you, alongside the electoral reforms, alongside fighting corruptions, let's keep this matter on the table. I'm also passionate about places of worship, and I think that you, being the mouth that we have, should push this matter and cause Parliament and cause government to take a decision. I'd like to mention a few things before Mr. Odeke comes to take away the microphone. One, to encourage you continue developing a working relationship in the House across party lines. I just hope that there are a few people from the NRM, because they are well-meaning legislators, the other side also. I hope that they've been invited, or they will be given this agenda so that they begin to own it. This agenda is not for the opposition. This is Uganda's agenda. Somebody has been sitting on it. You are just the ones who have brought it out, and so it should be taken across party lines. Two, to facilitate your work, I want to encourage you that a united opposition is an extremely important asset. You are free to disagree as the opposition, but please do it behind the scenes there. Any one of us in the opposition who may have issues, let us call Matthias Honorable Mpuga and say to him, this is not it. Because the only platform we have as the opposition in Uganda, where we've been able to unite demonstrably, is the parliamentary platform. And so this one is so precious to us that we would not be excited to hear public unnecessary criticism on the team that is at the forefront. We are ready to criticize you, but in private. I hope that the rest of the people will also do that. Don't take it there because it weakens the team. And then for you, the people who are in the steering wheel, I saw the shadow cabinet. You are our leaders, your integrity, your character is on the spotlight. So it becomes a useful asset to champion this. They commonly say that if a leper is selling meat, then people will even refuse to buy the meat because it's looking so, and yet the meat is good. So your own character, how are you carrying yourself out there? I had already offered to come and have a chat. One day I'll come as some old legislator, come and have a chat when the chief whip allows me. But we want to encourage you to know that you are the bearers of this vision, and therefore whatever you do, whether in or out of this parliament, has serious implications. Lastly, for whatever it takes, the government of Uganda is better advised to take this matter seriously, because this agenda as it is what can save this country from an imminent collapse. You continue to neglect these matters, people in the leadership of this country, you do so knowing that the weight of the country is going to collapse under your negligence and irresponsibility. I want to thank you, and I also bring the apologies of General Muntu, who went to bury a colleague. Thank you very much for this opportunity. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Alice Alaso. I'm sure you all appreciate the words of wisdom that she has shared with us. Just like she said, ANT might not be in Parliament, but they are definitely a part of the struggle and they're part of the progress in Uganda. So thank you very much, Honorable Alaso. Could I invite Honorable Asuman Basalirwa on behalf of JEMA to speak? And thereafter, we shall have the representative from Uganda People's Congress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Master of Ceremonies, the President of the National Unity Platform, the Leader of Opposition, our Chief Whip, colleagues, leaders from the various political parties, the Secretary General of DP, who is representing our colleague, the Honorable Mao, the Secretary General of the UPC, who is representing our colleague, Honorable Kena, Secretary General of the People's Progressive Party. We share a lot with you. We have each a single member in Parliament, so I'm closer to you than the others. The National Coordinator of ANT, the Secretary General of JEMA is here. I don't know where he has gone, Mr. Katerega. Yes, he's also in our midst. Ladies and gentlemen, I just make 3 remarks. Number one, to appreciate the President of the National Unity Platform for selecting a leader of opposition who is unifying. I want to bring our gratitude as JEMA to you, the President of National Unity Platform, for bringing us or giving us in Parliament a unifying leader of opposition. And that is very important because if you have a leader of opposition who does not exhibit unity, values of unity and togetherness, the opposition in Parliament will collapse. So we want to register our appreciation for that. Number 2, we want to thank the leader of opposition for this agenda. You have helped us answer a very critical question that the Honorable Alice Alaso talks about. And the question is, what do you have to offer? I think the debate has shifted or will shift from today. Although we live in a country where people don't want to read, you will still hear people asking what we have to offer. Even with this detailed document, they will continue to ask. But fortunately, ignorance is a choice. And the world does not owe you information. If you don't want to learn, it's up to you. So at least the debate is going to shift. And the debate will be on the appropriateness of this agenda, not on the absence. And I hope that narrative, especially our colleagues in the communication sphere, should now be able to manage it. We don't want now to hear our people becoming defensive or apologetic. We have a responsibility to internalize this agenda and engage the country on this agenda. So we want to thank you for that. The second last issue is for us to be able to push this agenda to the next phase. We must be able to understand it. How are we going to understand it? It is out here. Let's do more research on it. The other day, the Right Honourable Speaker was briefing Parliament on where he wants Parliament to be or to go. And he said he wants a Parliament where people are informed. He's not going to give a lot of space to MPs who are just going to make pedestrian statements. Now, what does that mean? If we are to be useful with this agenda, then we must have knowledge. We must research. We must understand it. Unfortunately, we have partners. I have seen my colleagues from the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy. I don't know why you are not being recognized, but you house iPod. You stand up for recognition. I know that in the near future, we shall discuss iPod because things have changed. But they're in the secretariat of iPod. Very good partners. So moving forward in this agenda, we really need to be knowledgeable, to research and understand each other. Finally, LOP, we are prepared to support this process. Those of us who are in Parliament are fully behind you. And we undertake to move with you in this agenda. At least I've been to your office several times, renewing my loyalty to you and the Chief Whip. Each time I come to your offices, that is the statement I use. Let's be able to move together. But I also want to request that you struggle in your offices to fight for the space of the political parties in this parliament. Because historically, there has been a lot of suppression, especially to the developing parties. Some people prefer calling them small parties. No, here we have big parties and developing parties. JEMA is a developing party, especially to the developing parties. We are hearing statements, you are not entitled to administrative secretaries, you are not entitled to this. How are we going to support this agenda if basic facilities are absent? So I really hope that we fight for a space, not as a matter of privilege, but as a matter of right, because these offices are enshrined in the Constitution. They're enshrined in our rules of procedure. So when we do that, I think we shall move together for the good of our country. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Basalirwa. That was a word from JEMA. And in the spirit of not forgetting any of the developing parties, I looked at our list and we did not have any representation from People's Progressive Party. Okay, could I invite the Secretary General to kindly come and give a word, and after to also register. And then after we shall have Honorable Abil from UPC. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'll start by thanking Honorable Basalirwa. If you had not mentioned the PPP, perhaps I wouldn't have been given the opportunity. I did register. Please do check. I did register. That said, Honorable Robert Sentam, the leader of the National Unity Platform. By the way, I should be quick to say, before you walked in, your absence was very loud. Very, very loud, because when we are launching a document as important as this, and the person who heads the biggest political party in the opposition is not around, it would definitely punch holes in the document. So thank you for coming. And in the same spirit, I want to thank the leader of opposition, the entire shadow cabinet. You have set a precedent. This has never been before. And we appreciate, I must say, increasingly, Parliament, from the view of opposition, is getting organized like never before. And we are proud of that. For once you sit and say, yes, I am in the opposition, and you want to identify with what is happening in Parliament. So thank you so much for the leadership that you're providing. Thank you for the good job. I will make a few remarks here. First, I want us to remind ourselves that even when we appreciate the work that is being done in Parliament as opposition, we should not lose the focus. We should not lose the objective, the goal that the opposition must have in this country. We should not work to be the best opposition, group in the entire world. No. Much as we want to be very good as opposition, we should not forget the fact that our ultimate goal is to be in government. We cannot wait to see the national resistance movement being in opposition and possibly the most disorganized opposition. So we should work towards that direction. Secondly, through this process, Honorable Leader of Opposition, I want to encourage us that as we continue to reach out, to build this document to what will eventually go into the floor of Parliament, let us, as much as possible, widen the consultation. I do not want to come here, or rather to sit and watch things happening the way they are happening. We want to be part of this entire process. Let the team doing the write-up reach out to the opposition political parties all across, so that we do not only come to launch, we should be part of the entire process. Whether in Parliament or outside Parliament, it is important that these political parties are reached. They should be giving the foundation for what goes into the legislative agenda. So as much as possible, I want to encourage us to do that. Finally, the people out there, yes, they may appreciate how we are doing things in Parliament. But it is more crucial that this leadership that we are seeing in Parliament is translated out there in as far as opposition is concerned. It will be terrible if in Parliament we organized and doing extremely well, and right out there, we are the most disorganized. So as much as possible, let's come together. Let the efforts go beyond Parliament. Let's work out there with all the stakeholders that want to see democracy in this country. More importantly, the democratic change that we all yearn for. So I want to thank you once again. And I also want to publicly register the apology of Honorable Santo Court, the Member of Parliament and the Shadow Minister for that matter. She's not here. She represents Saru County North in Pade, and as you're aware, there is a burial ceremony of one of the gallant sons of this country in Pade, so she couldn't be with us here today. That said, I want to say PPP will be 100% behind this, and we will work together as much as possible to see that this gets to the point that we all desire. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much. And my apologies from my side as well, Mr. Lira. We found your name, so you're properly registered. So once again, we thank you very much for the words. Could I now invite on behalf of Uganda People's Congress, Honorable Fred Bill, to just speak to us for a few minutes. Honorable Bill, please.
Thank you very much, the MC. I want to thank again the party president of National Unity Platform, Honorable Chagulanyi, Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu. I want to thank the party president of Yema, Honorable Asman Vasalirwa. I'd like to thank the Right Honorable of Opposition, presenting their party leaders, Secretary Generals, Secretaries General. And I would like to thank honorable members of parliament who are here. And I don't want to forget with a very important group that Honorable Ambassador talked about. I want to thank, and again, allow me with your permission, sir, the Right Honorable Leader of Opposition, to once again tell the team from NIMD, who are the Secretariat of IPOD, to stand up, and I introduce them by name. Just standing now with a pink shirt is the country representative of Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy, and who is our Executive Secretary of IPOD, Mr. Frank Rusa. You can sit down. Next to him is Dr. Lawrence, who is our program manager of NIMD, and also he supports the Secretariat of IPOD. You can sit down. I would like to thank the staff, our staff of the Office of the Leader of Opposition. I know you are the unsung hero. All this which is written down, you had sleepless nights, you had to burn late the candle in the night to ensure that we have a document through our Leader of Opposition. And as UPC, we are supportive about this agenda. This is an agenda of us as the opposition. I want to put it clearly to you people that UPC is the only party which has led Uganda twice. I just want to remind you that. And it is the only government which has been elected twice. You lose power, then you are elected, re-elected. So we know what we call statecraft. And I want to, as an experienced group of people, I want to assure you that Right Honorable Leader of Opposition, with our experience, we want to assure you that you are on the right track. You're on the right track. This is what we call statecraft. The ability to collect different talents together and bring them in this house and debate about issues that we share, much as we are from different political parties, is something to be admired. And this is what we call statecraft. To those ones, or to the voters out there, when they look at different political parties seated here and they see them talking one language, they will start trusting us with power. And I'm telling you, like night follows day, if you continue with this trajectory, State House will be ours. UPC as a political party, we want to say that we have one shadow member, one shadow minister that you gave us. We have not complained, Mr. Right Honorable Leader of Opposition. You gave us a very big ministry of defense, and we are going to do very well in that ministry, I promise you. Honorable Dur Jonathan is the Shadow Minister for Defense. We are going to do very well. We shall do everything it takes to ensure that we deliver on the floor of Parliament if the time comes. And for those ones who have been questioning, which UPC, this is your answer now. The fact that the Leader of Opposition has called me, there is only one UPC in Uganda. And in the world. Thank you, my mother, Nabukenya, Honorable Nabukenya. On a serious note, I want to assure you that for us as a party, under the leadership of Honorable Jimmy Akena, who is not here, I want to bring his apology. As you know that there's a burial going on in Pader. They have gone there. We as UPC are committed to the cause of the people of Uganda. And we shall fight together with you to ensure that our people get the services they deserve. Especially, Right Honorable Leader of Opposition, I want you to look at our manifesto, which is very good. It was done by a consultant, professor in Makerere University. And we approved it in our delegate conference. So I beg that, like the education, the health that you're really urging us to support in Parliament. So it's important to incorporate some of our ideas, which we shall be able to tell our members of Parliament to support. I want to thank you once again, honorable members, for coming here. And as we go back, we should continue this spirit. Let us unite our members and ensure that we move together. I speak all this for God and my country.
Thank you very much, Honorable Fred Bill. Thank you, UPC. And we definitely thank you for the experience that you come along with. Now, allow me to now invite the Democratic Party, represented by Dr. Gerald Siranda, to please come and also share your experience with the leader of the opposition. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Siranda, please.
Thank you so much, MC. The Honorable Robert Chaguranyi Sentamu, the President of NOP, the Right Honorable Matthias Mpuga Nsamba, the leader of the opposition, our leader, the Honorable Kao, the Chief Opposition Whip, Kojawase, Wanyalanavi, the colleagues, the Secretary Generals, Honorable Bill, Honorable Lira, Honorable Lasso, Honorable Lewis David Luongoya, and the Honorable Members of Parliament. I want to congratulate you upon taking the oath as the shadow ministers in your respective capacities. I have all the trust that God created us with different skills, different abilities, and God set this particular time that you are going to be the ones that are in these positions. And I want to assure you, you have our full support because you're the ones that we have. You're the ones that we've been waiting for to take another stride to offer the best alternative that Uganda requires. I want to bring the apologies from the Honorable Norbert Mao, the President General of the Democratic Party. He communicated to the leader of opposition, our leader. Apart from being a party president, he's also an elder in Acholi and is away to attend a burial of the foreign grandson of Uganda, the General Paul Okech. The Honorable Mpuga, I want to appreciate you and your team. You've written history. I know several people have spoken many things about the people that are in opposition, and particularly the current leadership. But you've disproved many, and I know that we will walk and take this walk and walk the talk. I'm sure that we'll disprove Uganda, and that will be the best alternative that Uganda has been waiting for. The Democratic Party believes in a constructive engagement. I know that there is a leader of opposition, but there are also political parties where we come from. We have the Democratic Party, we have PPP, we have UPC, we have JEMA, and I believe that these engagements can help for us to have a sense of ownership to drive the agenda of the Uganda that we want to see, to drive the agenda of the Uganda that works for us. At the iPod, we say, we put Uganda forward. And despite of all our parties, we want to put Uganda forward. That's what Frank and Nimud always emphasizes, putting Uganda forward. And I want to appreciate you for also thinking about the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy and iPod. And Frank, I want to implore you to support these processes because it's a very, very, very good process. that requires actualization. And with your support, we believe that we can take Uganda to the next destination, the Canaan that we're waiting for. The Honorable Leader of Opposition captured exactly what the DP has been talking about. As you may be aware that the first leader of opposition was DP, and therefore the mother of multi-party dispensation is the Democratic Party. And I want to appreciate that indeed DP did a good nurturing of Honorable Mpuga and the rest of the team. You can see. We commit the Democratic Party that we will walk this journey together, but there are some key pillars that I believe is very important. You captured a lot of the things that we believe in. First, we believe that as the opposition, we should provide servant leadership to the people that sent us to this house, to the people that put us in these positions. Servant leadership is key. The government that we're opposing now, the government that we want to remove, I think is not provided the direct line on servant leadership. We are leading a very divided Uganda. The question on national reconciliation is a key thing that Honorable Mpuga and the team, we want it to come on the forefront. National reconciliation. The country is torn to the level that when you go to hospital, you want to find, is this Dr. Samia? Is he Mgisu? Is he? The country is torn apart. People don't want to look at you as a Ugandan. And I think the question on national reconciliation should be on the top agenda of what we want to discuss as a nation. The question on a new consensus for Uganda, which Uganda is this? We've reached a level where you don't even want to introduce yourself as Ugandan. There are people who think they are more Ugandan than others. We believe that the question on a new consensus of this project called Uganda is very important for us to have on our agenda. And I believe that it was very, very captured for the question on uniting the nation and the question on going back to the building block. You would not hear some of the proposals that government want to propose. For instance, the questions that we put in terms of which land is this? How many people how much land can one person own in Uganda? The question on ending corruption is key. I want to appreciate you. It's a cancer, and every regime, every time a regime takes oath, they continue just changing the name. Now we are talking parish model. The other day, Kisanja kuna mchezo. I don't know what will be next. But I think for me, you provide a solid proposals on how we should deal with that. The shared properties. It's very important that we talk about this project Uganda. We who come from the East, what do we get from this country? Those from the Center, what do they get from this country? Those from the West, what do they get from this country? And we propose as a Democratic Party that we should also come up with a proposal of the Stolen Assets Tribunal. Several assets of the country have been stolen. We believe that we should come up with that tribunal as an agenda so that we get to know which assets have been stolen. Several people have been taken to prison, but they serve and come out, and then they continue enjoying what they stole. I think on the question of corruption, we would go an extra mile. The Honorable Mpuga, we believe that your team is a very solid team, backed by a very, very, very solid and experienced civil service wing. The question on establishing the National Youth Service is very important, that we train our people, our men, young men and women. A lot of our people and leaders are within that category, within that age. So I think we must establish so that schools like the Uganda Management Institute get back to originality of what they were supposed to do. Education has become a business. It's not more of a service. It's about a business. And we believe coming up with proposals like with the National Youth Service will help us as a country. There are bills that the former parliament or MPs had worked on. For instance, our own Riando Komakech had come up with a bill that we believe is important to capture. Enact the war crimes, the war victims compensation as an act. Several people have suffered out of war in the areas where Honorable Lasso and where we come from, the areas of Honorable Burenda up today. People are still talking about their compensation, stretching up the areas of where Honorable Zake comes from. I think when we have a proper way of compensating the war victims, this is going to help the Ugandans believe that the blood they shed finally has burst something. Honorable Mpuga, we appreciate the proposal on reduction on the size of parliament. I think that should go even up the local level. People are eating rats today because of a district. Where we come from, we have a sub-county in our area that has operated for 5 years, but they don't even have a building to house a sub-county. They still rent in the former sub-county for 5 years. They don't even have a private person that has built a sub-county, a house in that place that can house a sub-county. So I think we believe that we should think critically on the question on the size of parliament, the size of our local government, and also the size of the administrative costs that we spend. We also believe and propose that the system of government, DP is a promoter of the proportional representation. It will assure us of the quality. It will also reduce this question on the size that we're talking about. And the Honorable Robert Chagulanyi, for instance, the votes he got, if it was under proportional representation, he would be having like 150 MPs. Because proportional representation comes with the scores that you have done. And it helps that every small institute and parties that we call developing, they may end up getting at least a member in the House. So we think that this period, we will contribute to the question on the proportional system of government. They are working well in Southern Africa, and you can see that they have peace because everybody comes on table. The question on national dialogue, I didn't hear it, but I think is a very passionate question that should move hand in hand with the national reconciliation. And as DP, we pledge our commitment to working together with you on that line. DP has a concept and a policy alternative on devolution. When you talk about Kenya, I'm happy you referred to Kenya in your presentation. It's a good neighbor. Devolution is a reality that takes development within the area of whatever collection that they do. The local governments have become tax collectors. They just collect and then remit to government. And then they have to go through a process of begging the money that they have collected to their people. Then it has to get back to work. The Honorable Nalima here can testify around this question that you collect money. The leaders that are collecting money are NUP in these areas, are DP, are FDC, are JEMA, and your people are looking at you for offering a service. You have collected the money, but you cannot even use that money to offer service. You instead have to beg central government to remit the money. So I believe that that's a question that Ugandans are going to support. Finally, the opposition should take lead in issues that affect the nation. As we speak now, we have the government that sometimes pretends to be doing the work that opposition should be doing. Look at the question of Myoga. That should be an opposition-led initiative. But there was a bypass and it will die at the end of the day. Look at the question of the COVID fund. The opposition should be leading the processes like those. But now government pretends and then they go and put a commission on the other side. So I believe that the opposition might be smaller, but for the purpose of leading the country and providing alternatives, the opposition can be visible and can respond to issues that affect the nation, that affect Ugandans, and we should be seen at the forefront of not forgetting the core value. We can be opposition, but just like the speaker said, that's not our final destination. Our final destination should be on the other side, providing leadership, and I want to see the NRM also on the side where we are sitting, so that we give them the alternative. You can imagine if we're on the other side, and with this very, very good presentation, I believe Uganda by 2026 would have been in Canaan. But not forgetting and still believing that if we walk to this talk and make sure that we mobilize people to have ownership, that this policy agenda also is driven up to the local districts, that all our political parties are part of the process of building and promoting this policy agenda, I believe that we will put the cabinet and the government on its toes, because now it's going to be responding and providing answers. Everything that they propose, I believe this policy legislative agenda will provide us an answer, and it will also improve the quality of what we want to do, because every time we go to the House, we will be debating based on a well-researched work that has been proposed here. I want to appreciate you once again and commit my party and commit our membership in Parliament that we are going to work together to the journey of Canaan. I beg to submit for truth and justice.
Thank you very much, Dr. Siranda. Can you give him a round of applause, please? So far, we have heard from 4 of the parties represented in the opposition here at Parliament. Could I now invite Honorable Joab Businge, the Honorable Member for Masindi Municipality, to speak to us on behalf of the Forum for Democratic Change. Thank you very much.
The party president, NOP, the leader of opposition, the shadow cabinet, leaders of the different political parties, civil society, the technical team, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, I'm Businge Joab, Member of Parliament, Masindi Municipality, and Member of NEC, Secretary for Agriculture in the FDC. First of all, I would love to congratulate the leader of opposition and whoever you have worked with for the successful launch of the alternative legislative agenda, which is testimony that it is the first of its kind. It saves us the embarrassment of the continuous accusation that as opposition, we have no alternative to offer. I think from here, we move with our heads up. Ladies and gentlemen, the FDC was invited. I've been reliably informed, and I've tried to connect with the Chief Administrative Officer at the party headquarters, and also the party president, Honorable Amri Atoboy. And I'm here to register his apology on behalf of the party that the time the invitation arrived at headquarters, he was caught up with body arrangements of his fallen sister, who was laid to rest yesterday and is still up country in Kumi. So he has asked me to thank you for this effort and to assure you that he is part of you and is ready to support this agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not intend to take much here, but only to add a voice and say that as opposition, we need to work together. For me, I have grown from a rural environment and we used to go hunting. You don't share the animal before it dies. So when you go to hunt, you must collectively and tirelessly work without demanding what is going to be your share. But you first chase the game, have it killed, then you sit and settle. I think this is a big challenge with the opposition. Before we get into government, I think the issue of positions, who is where, who is doing what, and what is preoccupying us. So, leader of opposition, I want to thank you for bringing us together. And I pray that all opposition parties should focus on having the animal killed first. Then we can sit and sort ourselves. With this brief permission, I want to wish you a successful conclusion of this function. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Honorable Businge, on behalf of the Forum for Democratic Change. Now, so far, we have heard from Alliance for National Transformation. We've heard from the People's Progressive Party, from the Justice Forum, JEMA, from Uganda People's Congress, from the Democratic Party, and from the Forum for Democratic Change. As we wind up from the political parties, it now gives me an honor to invite the party president of the National Unity Platform, Honorable Chagulanyi Robert Sentamu, to kindly come and share some words on this event. Honorable, please.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies. The Right Honorable Leader of Opposition in the 11th Parliament, the Chief Opposition Whip, Deputy Chief Opposition Whip, the Acting Coordinator of the Alliance for National Transformation, the Honorable Alice Alaso, the Lord Mayor who just left, Party President of the Justice Forum, the Honorable Asumani Vasalirwa, my good friend, the Secretaries General from the People's Progressive Party, Mr. Alira David, from the Uganda People's Congress, Honorable Ebil, from the Democratic Party, the Honorable Gerard Siranda, and from the National Unity Platform, Mr. David Lewis Lubongoya. The shadow cabinet members, the leadership of the National Unity Platform members are present today. Honorable members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted today to be present as our parliamentary front launches their legislative agenda, which amazingly is the first of its kind in the history of Uganda. More particularly, I'm delighted that the legislative agenda focuses on areas among many, such as the electoral reforms, curbing wasteful spending, service delivery, especially in the areas of education and health, and the participation and performance of our members of Parliament. We all know, and it has actually been mentioned, that we've been severally criticized as a group that has no clear agenda, as a group that would sink this country if we ever take power. Many times we've been criticized to be a group that has no alternative policy. Although I've been many times encouraging such critiques to read our manifesto, the manifesto of the National Unity Platform, and indeed the manifestos of other parties, the ANT manifesto, the FDC manifesto, and the DP manifesto. I further want to encourage them to read this legislative agenda, because this legislative agenda largely covers, it's largely a reflection of our manifesto. So I know that such people criticize us that way simply because they try to cover the truth. And I'm very honored to see that every now and then the truth protrudes out and manifests itself. I salute you once again, friends. Honorable members, allow me to once again congratulate you for emerging victorious from an extremely, extremely violent election. We will all agree that the election in which you emerged winners was more or less a war front. And if it was a less violent election, we would have much, much more members in this house. But we are here and we have to work with what is here today. While we are here, ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you that the common person down there in the common places, in the rural areas, in the ghetto, the common Ugandan is still skeptical about whether this parliament is capable of performing its mandate. You will agree with me that this parliament, like all other institutions of government, have been vulgarized. This parliament in particular has on many occasions, but more particularly on the age limit debate, has cast itself in very bad light with the people. So while you have a duty to, restore confidence of the people in this parliament, I want you to know the reality of where you are, the reality of the way things are. Friends, we are in a military dictatorship. I will say it again for clarity. We are in a military dictatorship. People largely have no faith in this parliament. So you must not sit here and forget the reality. You must not sit here and forget what is in the minds and eyes of the people that you represent here. Of course, it's very, very important to know. Well, you know that already, but it's important to remind you that the parliament and the judiciary are largely used, to cast an image of democratic rule and constitutionalism in this country. They're only used to cover the truth. That is the reality of the matter. We all know that power, real power, does not rest in these institutions, but rather in the hands of those that have the guns. So we must remind ourselves of that, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, one may ask, why then are we in parliament? Why then do we have a leader of opposition? Why are we here in the first place? The Baganda say, Omuzizi azimbya twe. We made it clear right from the beginning that we will use every available front, every available office to further the fight, the struggle for true freedom, justice, for true democracy in this country. And that is why we're here. We are not in the opposition because that's right, our rightful position. No. We are supposed to be government because people elected us to lead them. But the guns pushed us in this position. And this position we shall use to fight even further, to see that ultimately we get where we are supposed to be, where the people of Uganda rightly placed us. I was recently very encouraged by one of my good friends, now His Excellency Hakainde Hichilema, the president of Zambia. And I was reminded that actually victory is possible and it is in the near future for us. So friends, while we are here, prepare yourselves not just to be in the opposition. People have trusted us with a little. And the way we perform now is what's going to give them even more confidence to trust us with the entire country. So let's go to work. Let's do what we must do, and let us do it with diligence, with confidence, but most importantly, with humility and with integrity. Besides, ladies and gentlemen, we are here because it is not these institutions or organs of government that we say are illegitimate. No, these are legitimate institutions and organs. It is those at the helm of them that are illegitimate. And that's why we want to remove them, so that these institutions and organs are not vulgarized any further. I will remind you very briefly of the clear indications of why we say those that rule over us today are illegitimate. Just the other day, yesterday, members of parliament from Greater Ruwero, who were together with my wife, by the way, today is our 10th wedding anniversary. And just to remind you, I'm accepting gifts in terms of cash, land titles. Yeah, but on a serious note, friends, just yesterday, the incident in Ruwero reminds you further of how we are being misruled. You all know the skyrocketing numbers of teenage pregnancies. You are all aware of the constant lies, year in, year out, term in, term out, of Madam Janet Museveni, the wife of the ruler of this land, who also doubles as Minister of Education and Sports, who also triples as the Maria Antoinette of our generation, has relegated the girl child to such a condition. And even those of you, not just the common citizens, the ordinary citizens, but also members of parliament, have no right to reach out to their people, have no right to extend services to their people. While you sit in this parliament, please be reminded of what happens when you are out of these parliamentary precincts. That's exactly what happens, friends. You all know that recently, the chairperson of the local government committee unearthed a rot. You all watched while the apparent prime minister of this country was on TV making a fake call to a fake person, the first purported beneficiary of the COVID relief. Was a hoax, was a fraud. Now you know where we are. While we are so comfortable in this AC, we can very easily forget the reality, but the people are watching us. It was your role, our role, to open the eyes of the people, and the eyes are wide open, ladies and gentlemen. Always remember that. Eyes are wide open, and they're looking at us. Allow me, friends, to briefly remind you of our values as the National Unity Platform, but I believe these are supposed to be values of all change-seeking Ugandans. They are 6 words: DRIIFS, drifts. D stands for discipline. R stands for reliability. The first I stands for integrity. The second I stands for inclusiveness. F stands for fidelity, and S stands for service. Please focus on those words, on those letters, focus on those values, and they will guide you. Focus on service delivery. I know that we are living in a messed up country, but let us be the light. Let us be the signification of the future and of hope among our people, bearing in mind the kind of country we're living in and the kind of leadership at the top. In fact, the kind of rulership that we are under. I want to remind you, my friends, I was here as a member of parliament, and I know that opposition-led committees are very, very prone to corruption. please avoid making those opposition committees havens for corruption. I've said it before and I want to say it again, that those are not committee opportunities to make yourselves rich. People are watching you, and of course we are watching you because we are people of Uganda as well. Avoid being comfortable. Avoid, that's what dictators do. They always want to make the opposition comfortable so that you don't check them. While they rob trillions of taxpayers' money, they throw a few crumbs to you. And if you're not very careful, you can very easily be diverted to such while they rob the nation. But like I said, it was your work, it was our work to awaken the people, and our people are wide awake. They are watching us, they are watching you. And they're going to see us by the way we operate. And they have the right, because we reminded them, they know they have the right to kick us the hell out. So remember that. As I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind all of us that where we are as a country is not where we're supposed to be. We all know what the problem of this country is. While we are launching the legislative agenda, while we come here on the microphones and speak very nice words, we all know what the square problem of Uganda is. The problem of Uganda is dictatorship. The problem of Uganda is Mr. Museveni and his dictatorial tendencies. Let us be straight. Let us be true to it. And the solution is removing the dictatorship. So let us focus on removing the dictator, and everything will put itself in place. Now, finally, and very finally, I want to encourage, like many speakers have, encourage unity. Friends, we are much weaker if we're not together, and we are much stronger if we're together. The more we are together, it doesn't only benefit our efforts, but even the hope that our people get. We know that we have a common problem. We know that we have a common enemy. We know that we have common objectives. So the more we operate together, we might not belong to the same political parties or political formations, but at least we know that the objective is one. And the enemy to that objective is one. And the solution is one. Everything else is a detail. What unites us is much bigger than what divides us. So let's come together, friends. Let's think together. Because when we come together and think together, you'll find that we will get solutions that bind us even more together. And when we present ourselves as a united force to the population of Uganda, we'll be taken more seriously than we are taken now. So, like the old saying has been taught to us since childhood, united, we stand. Divided, we fall. So let's choose whether we want to stand or we want to fall. So with those few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you. Once again, emphasize on unity and remind us that just by the mere fact that we are here all speaking with one voice, at least for today, that's not a bad start, is it? So let's carry it on. I want to wish you the best of luck in implementing a united opposition legislative agenda. And I want to thank you for listening to me, for God and my country. When the struggle is over, we shall wear the victor's crown. We shall wear the victor's crown. We shall wear the victor's crown. When the struggle is over, we shall wear the victor's crown. In a new Uganda. People power, our power. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chagulanyi. Ugandans, I know you can give a better round of applause than that. To all our distinguished guests, we have listened to various words from all the different shades of political parties here at Parliament. And we really thank you that you have been able to stay and contribute in your various ways. Now, at this juncture, I would like to invite the leader of the opposition to do two things. First of all, we have a very simple gift from the Office of the Leader of Opposition. And I think it is also appropriate because we are celebrating a marriage anniversary that we shall have a few gifts given out today and thereafter to officially close our function for the day. So, Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, our very able Master of Ceremonies. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, before I make my closing remarks for the day, it's my singular honor to recognize and in memory of this very special day, heralded as the very first of the kind since multi-party returned to motherland, to recognize by way of very humble souvenirs to a few people representing varied shades in this audience. I'll begin with my good sister and friend, Ms. Sarah Bidete, to represent civil society, to move with a small souvenir from the leaders of the opposition. Of course, it's not just a present, but an invitation for further engagement and involvement. We know civil society is facing a veiled attack, and we are alive to the attack. And I have sent the signals to my Minister for Internal Affairs to take interest in these matters. So we are alive to the afflictions of that front. Can I also, on your behalf, colleagues, give a small present to the Honorable Ali Salasso on behalf of ANT. You certainly know her as a former very formidable legislator. We found her here, we learned a lot from her. She remains one of the very best this land has ever produced. Please, for ANT. Can I also invite our friend David Alila on behalf of PPP. Honorable Shuma, do you call them the growing parties? Developing parties? Yes. PPP bestowed us with the Minister of Special Regions, Honorable Santo Okot, and kindly from us. Then the Honorable Asman Basadiro for another developing party. Kind of recognition of your amazing presence, ever presence on the front. Honorable Freddie Bill from the mighty UPC, indomitable, twice in power, Congress of the People, we shall master the art of the state. The state house is yours. Thank you. Dr. Giles Seranda, from the party that sharpened my edges and the edges of so many of my ilk, the DNA does reflect. The Honorable Job Businge, thank you so much for your analogy. Hopefully, when eventually the animal falls, we shall not resemble the latest hunter that actually closed out all the other hunters and ate it alone. He not only ate it alone, ate it unboiled. Then to my party president, humbly receive, could this be the other gift you talked about, or this is different? Next is from the LOP. The others we shall mobilize. This is for this special day. Congratulate you and thanking you for supporting the opposition in Parliament. We shall be there. Thank you. Friends, it's been a long morning, but probably even hardly recognized how time was flying. Yesterday, I received a call from the Honorable Norbert Mao, registering his apology and entrusting Dr. Sland on behalf of DP. And he told me that as the opposition, we must take cognizance of the fact that the game is on and the match is on and the rules are there. But unfortunately, one of the teams is trying to narrow the goalposts. And apparently they have 2 balls. And that one of the players on one side is the referee. And also bearing cards and brandishes them at will. So then we must master either to sit on the pitch and make the game improbable to play, or play with all the attendant fouls and master the game of the other playing unlawful opponent. Those are his words. And it's an honest invitation to all of us to reflect on the world is shared across, that ours is a delicate terrain, but we have only this country to call home. And we have a duty to shape the narrative of politics, to shape the fears, to give assurances to the country that is really gripped with the fear of politics and the politicians. I want to thank you, friends, for this amazing job we've done today. Allow me extend my sincere appreciation to our very able technical team in the Department of the Leadership of the Opposition, headed by Mr. Peter Busiku, for the meticulous organization, and the policy analysis team led by Mr. Moses Chiarigonza for an amazing job we've done to provide the necessary technical backstopping that has shaped this day, and look forward to working with the team to ensure that this job is not finished here. I want to assure the parties that we are alive to the desire to further engage. We have only provided the headlines. The details lie in how meticulously we execute this. And can I tell you, friends in Parliament, the biggest job actually is not here. The only difference that where we are offers an official microphone, but should not be blinded by the officialdom that surrounds this place. To be blind to the afflictions of people, the power actually lies outside this building. The power should be summoned. We need to move and summon that power and be able to harness the power that lies with the people. Like I said, these are simply talking points. They're not conclusive. They will need to be reshuffled, remodeled, and rethought to give true meaning to our desperate aspirations. I'm underlining desperation because the country is real, ailing, it's desperate. We can fix it. We can do it. We can master it. We can summon that special energy to surmount what looks insurmountable, because those we fear ultimately fear the people. we can do it. Lastly, friends, we have done all this. The Honorable Robert Chagwa, my president, talked about the hawks in what the Prime Minister promised and delivered to the country as the Nabanja Kamani. Allow me to introduce my own Prime Minister who does not supply air, my dear wife across, and Shazlani Kane, Maria Mpuga. Incredibly, her second name is Nabanja, but does not supply air. She is amazingly supportive. These are our endeavors, lay us bare. But you do not have a supportive hand, actually, you cannot deliver. I thank her most honestly for support. And all of you friends, this journey we have started is not improbable. Live in no fear. We can move it, we can master it. It is our time. Thank you so much for God and my country.
I believe we can give a better round of applause to the leader of the opposition. To all our distinguished guests, our function for the day has come to a close. We really thank you, especially all of you who have been able to stay with us from beginning to end. To our media partners, especially NBS, BBS, Telefina, we thank you for broadcasting the events of today. To the different political parties that have given a different shade brought together at this function, would ask that you kindly remain with us as we go and have lunch. So this discussion will continue in the canteen. To all our other guests, once again, thank you so much for joining us and have a lovely day. Thank you very much. Okay, I have just been informed that everybody is invited for a group photo with the president of NUP on the steps of Parliament. So could I kindly ask that we, in an orderly manner, please go to the steps of Parliament for a group photograph. Thank you very much once again. Have a lovely day.